Yeah, equally, they were saying, let's change government, let's change it again. We are the people who put them there, we can still change them.
Former private soldier Mamadou Lamine Ba has told the Truth Commission that the plans of the soldiers were to execute officers and loot the central bank and flee the country had the 1994 coup failed. In another controversial move, U.S. President Donald Trump signed a proclamation that recognizes Israeli sovereignty over the disputed Golan Heights angering Syrians. Mali's government has announced the sacking of top military officers and the dissolution of a militia a day after the killing of more than 130 people. These are the headlines. More coming on your way on the wall today on iAfrica TV. It's 11 p.m. in Istanbul, 1 a.m. in Washington State, 2000 GMT here in the Gambia. You're watching the World Today Evening Bulletin. We now kick off with our first story. The July 1994 coup was initially planned on July 21st when the country's first ruler, Sadauda Kairaba Jawara, was coming home from England. According to the Truth Commission, today's witness, former private soldier Mamadou Lamine Ba, the plan was to arrest Jawara at the airport. Then Sana Sabali was to move in with forces to blow the tower at the Banjo International Airport and control the place. Ba, who served as an orderly to both Lieutenant Colonel Odu, a Nigerian army commander in Gambia, and Chief of Defense Staff Colonel Babukar Jatta, said his proximity to the Nigerian soldier has made him a person of interest to Edward Singate in the planning of the coup. Al-Hassan Sise has more.
Giving his testimony today at the TRRC, Mamadou Lamine Ba, the then orderly of Nigerian Commander Lieutenant Colonel Odu, said the presence of the Nigerian army played a vital role to the lives of the soldiers. He said the Nigerian army is the reason Gambian soldiers started enjoying certain incentives, such as transport allowance, house rent allowance and others, which elevates the income of a private soldier to be at least $1,200. He highlighted at a time when his house rent allowance wasn't paid, he went to query it at the adjutant's office where he had a misunderstanding with the adjutant. In that engagement, Lieutenant Edward Singate intervened and asked him to leave the office for him to take care of his problem. He added Edward Singate later told him to go with him to his office, where he informed him that they were about to stage a coup which he will be a useful material to them because he was working directly under a commander. They will need information and he will be compensated. He further said Edward Singate told him in case plan A fails, there is a plan B which they will kill all the senior officers and loot the central bank and flee the country. Bah added as the initial plan of overthrowing Jawara at the airport was foiled, Yaya Jammeh went to see Lieutenant Colonel Odu and told him, "Sir, it has failed." Odu told him they cannot allow them to do that at the airport. Bah remarked Odu further told Yaya Jammeh now that Jawara is at his home, go after him there, and suggested to Yaya Jammeh they should use the purported American army training exercise as a cover to stage the coup. Mr. Mamadou Lamine Ba remarked soldiers were not happy with the junta because they promised them compensation if they succeed in taking the government. That he said the junta didn't honor, which resulted to the soldiers grooming a counter coup to change the junta government.
Well, soldiers were not really happy because the promise made to them was not fulfilled.
What was the promise made to them?
The promise, as I said earlier on, was they will compensate each soldier when they succeed. And they succeeded. And there's nothing like that coming forward. So soldiers were not definitely happy. Grumbling, people were grumbling. Anywhere you have 2 or 3 people sitting down, that's the issue they are talking about, whether you know it or not.
And yes, they were saying they were not compensated as promised. Yes. But what else were they saying about that?
Yeah, equally, they were saying, let's change government, let's change it again. We are the people who put them there, we can still change them. Yes, that rumor also was going on. It was not even a rumor anymore because, you know, we formed the bulk majority, we formed the bulk of the majority. Yeah. As I said earlier on, it's only Yundum that participated in that coup d'etat, and, you know, even in the coup d'etat itself, not everybody was involved. Most of the senior officers, they all ran away, officers, they all ran away. It's only junior ranks, from private soldier, Lance Corporal, the highest corporal, the highest criminal corporal. So that means not everybody is involved, okay? And definitely the same soldiers are still in Yundum again, and they're not satisfied, they're not happy. Because they have seen that already, they have changed their life is already changed. And still our life continues to be the same. Yeah.
As far as you know, were there any meetings in which the soldiers discussed this particular issue?
Myself, I've attended a meeting, I think on if I may remember, 2 occasions.
Okay. Where were those meetings held?
We normally converge. See, if you one time visited Yundum, behind the camp, you have this lemon. A big farm of lemon is behind there. That's normally where we normally go and hide and then smoke our weed and then discuss our issues. I attended on 2 occasions on a meeting there.
Can you tell us who were the soldiers you can recall who were present during these meetings?
I can remember myself being there, Lamin Bojang, Basiru Kamara,
Ansu Basiru Kamara.
The dead Basiru Kamara, the late Basiru Kamara.
What was his rank?
He was a sergeant, staff sergeant or sergeant.
Okay, and who else?
And then Ansu Sonko. Yes, I think I can remember these people.
Do you know a person called Alaji Kanyi?
Yes, exactly, Alaji Kanyi. Yes, he used to be part of the meeting.
Modou Lamine Bah is an origin of Bureng in Jara Lower River region. He joined the Gambia Army in 1990 and served in various camps. He served as the orderly of Lieutenant Colonel Odu till 1994 when the Nigerian Army left. Reporting for iAfrica TV, I am Alhassan Sise.
Hundreds of people from Muslim, Jewish and Christian communities in New York staged a rally against Islamophobia. Demonstrators gathered at Times Square just over a week after 50 people were killed in 2 mosque attacks in New Zealand, demanding justice and calling for peace. The group carried banners and chanted against racism and white supremacy. Protesters also called for actions to challenge growing Islamophobia and anti-immigrant bigotry. The rally was organized by several groups including the Council on American Islamic Relations and Turkish-American National Steering Committee. Let's take a look at this insert.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Islamophobia has got to go! White supremacy is the enemy!
We support everyone, we invite everyone, we welcome everybody into our country, and you know, something like this just doesn't happen in New Zealand. You know, you always seem like you're so remote from it, and when it happens it really hits home, literally. So we're here today to support our Muslim brothers and sisters, to show that, you know, we can't stand for this, it has to change, and we're here to support our fellow human beings.
And unfortunately, here, as in New Zealand and around the world, white nationalism is on an upsurge, egged on by political forces, and we have to come together as communities to stand against that, to show an alternative vision of diversity, of loving one another, of being one community together, what Dr. King called the beloved community.
Is that right?
We're here because I'm grieving. I'm a pastor in a Christian tradition, and when we see violence done in this way or in any way against any group of people, it's wrong. And so we're here to show our solidarity for our Muslim siblings and say that any violence that's done in the name of white supremacy, any form of violence against any religious community is wrong and it's evil, and we stand with them.
والحمد لله رب العالمين.
By an individual is a violence that has been repeated all over the world against.
You are not in solidarity with the Muslim community.
The United Nations Security Council members met with the Malian president in Bamako to discuss measures to be taken towards a full implementation of Peace and Reconciliation Accord. This is the fourth council mission to Mali since the establishment of the UN Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in Mali in 2013. Saja Sambo has more.
The Security Council members met with the Malian president in Bamako discussing measures to be taken towards a full implementation of the Peace and Reconciliation Accord. Speaking to reporters, the Malian president Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta said, MINUSMA is not only here on a military stabilization mission. MINUSMA is also here to support population in its response to current social needs. There is medical support, there is development support, there is support in training. He added all this makes of this peace and stabilization mission in a country where what is at stake is not only Mali. What is at stake is peace in the world. What is at stake is to defend values in which we all believe. Whether it's you up there and us here. And so even if we are still in a moment of adaptation and training, this mission is now more than ever useful. The French ambassador Francois Delattre told reporters that the council members had a very deep and very friendly meeting with the Malian president. He said it was for all of us an honor to share this moment with the chief of state. It was a privileged moment for our mission in Mali. What I remember of it is a great convergence between the president and us in the clear explanation he gave us, and in the commitment of the 15 members of the Security Council to jointly move forward together, and if possible, move fast towards the full implementation of the Peace and Reconciliation Accord. During their mission in Bamako, the ambassadors met with the Malian authorities and the various parties to the agreement, the international and the national actors, as well as the partners of the UN Multidimensional Integration Stabilization Mission in Mali. This is the fourth council mission to Mali since the establishment of the UN Multidimensional Integration Stabilization Mission in Mali in 2013. The delegation is led by Ambassadors Francois Delattre from France, Christophe Hotsken from Germany, and Kaku Hodja Lyon Adom from Cote d'Ivoire.
The United Nations yesterday marked the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination with calls to counter rising nationalist populism and extreme supremacist ideologies. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres announced that he had asked his special advisor for the prevention of genocide, Adama Dieng, to bring together the UN system to design a strategy and plan of action to end hate speech. Here is an insight.
It is crucial for all of us to join hands, stand up, and defend the principles of equality and human dignity. With that in mind, I've asked my special advisor for the prevention of genocide, Adama Dieng, to bring together the UN system to design a strategy and plan of action to combat hate speech. At the heart of our efforts, we must uphold and promote universal human rights. And this includes supporting national legislation that promotes non-discrimination and encouraging politicians and religious leaders to speak out against intolerance, discriminatory stereotyping, and hate speech. Today, let us all resolve to fight racism and discrimination in remembrance of those who have died standing up for their own and others' human rights.
Kate Gilmore, United Nations Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights, called for all countries to unite in affirming that all people are born free and equal in dignity and rights.
But it must be the United Nations, united by its founding charter's affirmation that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights enshrined that born we all are free and equal in dignity and rights. And be united too against those forces that would erode that affirmation, for which there is no conscionable alternative.
For her part, Tandai Ashimi, Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia and Related Intolerance, said defeating racial discrimination and intolerance cannot and should not be a fight waged exclusively or even primarily by those subject to discrimination and intolerance and inclusion.
Defeating racial discrimination and intolerance cannot and should not be a fight waged exclusively or even primarily by those subject to discrimination, intolerance, and inclusion. Every single person, especially those who enjoy racial, ethnic, religious, gender, or class privilege on a daily basis, must play their part to put an end to racism, xenophobia, and related intolerance that prevails today.
Coming up after the break, rescue operations continue in the areas affected by cyclone in Mozambique. Living conditions in some of the shelters are desperate, coupled with stagnant waters, lack of hygiene, decomposing bodies, and overcrowding.
Europe Mr. Conte nka bolo kol kan sai kai na so kono mano ban ta jabo ban ta tulo ban sai ka bolo kol kan da ka ba ofisol kono ba dama bulo mutarin ba ka ta simpla no ko ba to ngane ta ya kuriyan ma kai duban na ta mano sani tulo ne mun da sai dai la buro da man balwo service kalam mun service balwo service ni da furon ta mo kalam mun da a fe la buro da ko abitala internet ol aya ba site la woldo balwo.com na wo sajje a apo nga ba download la telephone ol na be sandiro ko ni wal na be sidin ala office ko ndama manjar pour ay ta bank kodoki abe sidin office ko da minto e do message so e telephone ko no e bitiko be Gambia dawda bitiko ba bele ko ta tano dawda yeta fenko tawo woda ma yala bar wa service na ta molda han na tanyo le kan pija na bro dan ka ko tanyo ko ayo ko pija
balwo service dinkirala jampo o manken na kolaya ko balwo service al demano kaje ko ale do mor feŋol sang alla dimbaya molu ana lakkanun tewul wato bela ani wat sudum fanan kono balwo service la dinkiralu ani la do kunyolu e be banko karo beto kabirin katon fo koyna nalla fa ko ku ko tan suro balwo service la kolto ali commandi telephone line la milbuko 9400213 7694319 wala 3192870 wala hankabi alta internet oto alila kolu jibe www.baluwo.com.
Welcome back. We remind you that you're watching the World Today Evening Bulletin. Let's now take a look at the remaining stories. As search and rescue operations continue in the areas affected by Cyclone Idai, as UNICEF Executive Director Henrietta Fore visits Mozambique to see firsthand its devastating effects. Beira bore the brunt of the cyclone. Many of the roads are barely usable. Roofs have been washed away. Trees have been knocked down. Living conditions in some of the shelters are desperate. Stagnant waters, lack of hygiene, decomposing bodies, overcrowding. These are breeding ground for diseases like diarrhea, malaria, and cholera. Let's take a look at this insert.
This is the town that really got the brunt of the storm. Much of the town was hit hard so that the streets are very wet. Roofs have been blown off of the houses, and many people have come here for shelter. So it is dry, it is a place where they can get some clean water, get some food, and they can get some blankets. People have been donating blankets and clothing because these people have escaped with nothing. For the residents who are from Beira, what they have told us is as the winds got higher and higher and the roofs were blown off of their houses, that the rain was too much in their homes. They could not stay there, so they looked for somewhere that would be dry. The churches and schools are the first places to go. So this is where the humanitarian assistance is focused, and UNICEF is helping with getting the water system working well with the municipal government, because if there can be water and food and some blankets and shelter, that at least will help people tide by.
U.S. President Donald Trump signed a proclamation Monday that recognizes Israeli sovereignty over the occupied Syrian Golan Heights. Israel has long lobbied the U.S. to recognize
U.S. President Donald Trump's,
but all post-administrations refused to heed the calls. The annexation of territories seized in conflicts is illegal under international law. While New Zealanders and Muslim communities around the world are both grieving and showing compassion for one another, they are also quite rightly asking questions on how this terror attack was able to happen. These include questions around the accessibility of semi-automatic weapons, the role social media has played generally, and the focus of the intelligence and security services. To find answers to those questions, the New Zealand government has established a top-level commission of inquiry into events that led to the March 15 terror attack on two Christchurch mosques, the country's Prime Minister announced today. Listen to her in this insert.
Though on the government's next steps in response to the Christchurch terrorist attack and our plans to keep New Zealand safe and to ensure that this never happens again. Last week, on the 18th of March, Cabinet agreed to establish an inquiry into the Christchurch mosque's terror attack. Today, Cabinet agreed the inquiry will be a royal commission. While New Zealanders and Muslim communities around the world are both grieving and showing compassion for one another, they are also quite rightly asking questions on how this terror attack was able to happen here. This includes questions around the accessibility of semi-automatic weapons, the role social media has played generally, and the focus of the intelligence and security services. There are questions I too have asked and of course want answers to as well. In short, the inquiry will look at what could have or should have been done to prevent the attack. It will inquire into the individual and his activities before the terrorist attack, including, of course, a look at agencies. It will look at the actions of the SIS, the GCSB, police, customs, immigration, and any other relevant government departments or agencies. In the next 2 weeks, the precise terms of reference will be finalised, including the lead for the Royal Commission and its duration. What I can say today is that there will be a focus on whether our intelligence community was concentrating its resources appropriately and whether there were any reports that could or should have been alerted them to this attack.
Mali's government has announced the sacking of senior military officers and the dissolution of an ethnic militia, a day after the massacre of more than 130 Fulani villagers, including women and children. Prime Minister Sumailu Bobai Maigai said new military chiefs would be named and that the Dannan Association, composed of Dogon hunters, had been dissolved. Mali's President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta sacked and replaced 2 generals and disbanded an anti-jihadi vigilante group on Sunday, a day after gunmen massacred 134 Fulani herders in the country's troubled central region. The ethnic bloodshed took place less than a week after a deadly assault by jihadis on an army post killed at least 23 soldiers, also in Mali's central region. That attack was claimed by an Al-Qaeda affiliate. The Army Chief of Staff General Mbemba Musa Keïta was removed and replaced by General Abdoulaye Coulibaly, while Chief of Land Forces General Abdurrahman Bedi was replaced by Brigadier General Kaba Sangare. Malians have grown increasingly frustrated by the failure of government forces to protect them from both jihadist onslaughts and ethnic reprisals. Both the massacre of civilians at the villages of Ogosugu and Welingara on Saturday, which left the charred bodies of women and children smoldering in their homes, has shocked a population long inured to gratuitous killing. Mali's Prime Minister Sumailu Boubèye Maïga said in a statement after an emergency cabinet meeting that President Keïta had also ordered the dissolution of an anti-jihadist vigilante group called the Naamasugu. Some of the group's ethnic Dogon fighters were suspected of being behind the attack. tacit outsourcing of the fight against jihadists to vigilante groups, which caused to settle has unleashed ethnic violence across the Sahel. The protection of the population remains and will remain the monopoly of the state, Maiga said. Our forces will actively disarm any person who should not be armed. Despite a 4,500-strong French force in the Sahel region, jihadist attacks have multiplied since they first intervened in 2013 in an effort to push back Islamists and allied Tuareg rebels who had taken over the northern half of the country. Well, viewers, that's all we have for you on the World Today Evening Bulletin. For more on these and other stories, kindly log on to our website, iafrica.tv. I am Fatmata Jaju. Please stay tuned for our Mandinka translation of the TRSC proceedings. Bye for now.
Diwli lanni maro lanni
fop lanni
awa joni mi anda honno gerde ten e ngaldo sabu e ngaldo Ibrahima jonnal taw joni mi anda se yahay kapitiki nyawlo den ha humpondire makko est ce qu'on non e warude
waden no awa
ane ko Ibrahima ma ko to woni mo Amerique
ko Amerique a woni
kede humpitaki fibe musibe men baluwo
be andanda kala ko wada wonde aduna si arrivi e juude mabbe a jonnay do dépassement Gambia har no weebi aya ta kadi taw ko mbudi din no jawi walla no jippi be halantama ko kala ko falda ko reise sengo nyamete il nebba maro ay basal bomde te kala ko rewi don a hendo to har no weebi kadi wona dum don tu be arde jondira mobile phone siko dum kadi laptop kala ko wayrode di ay kasbawa be wawma jonnude kadi sa vala umpitade ko weebi etti Google account ma joni data ton wada download app mabbe on ayay kala ko humpi may mabbe ton be weebi ama
ka wonda woy aduna on
kala ko wawda
a jonnanay wondo ka leydi men Gambia do dépense
harano weebi hama si dum no fono nebi immo den joni mi dota ma ka place mabbe jan
waden joni
iya heba ko fala
waden fisam